Our thoughts are very much with New South Wales farmers members, farmers and regional communities across New South Wales as we deal with this really challenging flood emergency. We've seen extreme rainfall events from Sydney north to the Queensland border, and we're starting to hear some pretty harrowing stories about the impact this weather event is having on farm businesses and regional communities across New South Wales. This afternoon, New South Wales Farmers is joined by Jordan Notara. Jordan's a senior meteorologist with the Bureau of Meteorology based here in New South Wales. And Jordan's going to give us a short overview on the weather we can expect over the coming 36 hours. Over to you, Jordan.
Yes, good afternoon. Jordan Notara, Senior Forecaster at the Bureau of Meteorology, covering over the weather over the next 36 hours. So as we speak, we have a low pressure trough which is stretching through northern New South Wales inland areas, as well as a coastal trough around parts of the coastline. This inland trough is producing thunderstorm activity throughout this morning into this afternoon, where we have seen heavy rainfall associated with storms in the region around Tibooburra earlier this afternoon. As we move across into the later part of today, we are going to see a continuation of risk of broad widespread shower activity, as well as potential exacerbated storm activity that will be bringing some isolated pockets of heavier rainfall throughout parts of inland New South Wales. And as we stretch across into the later part of this evening into tomorrow, we are going to see a threat shift from the northwestern parts of our inland areas to more of our slopes and plains as we move towards into the earlier parts of Tuesday morning and into the afternoon. So looking at where we are going at the moment, so currently we have our New South Wales weather map at the moment showing satellite imagery, as well as red and orange dots showing the current lightning activity in the last hour to 5 p.m. We are seeing some active storms around the northern inland parts of our state, and we have seen some quite heavy rainfall, around 90 millimetres fallen since 9 a.m. around Tibooburra, as well as consistently around 10 millimetres an hour broadly across inland areas of the state. So pulling on our radar imagery, we can see the broad nature of where we can cover our, see our rain activity throughout our state. We're on a radar through inland parts of the state, as well as Moree, picking up this rainfall that we are seeing through in this cloud band, as well as the isolated pockets of some heavier falls associated with those storms. The main threat that we want to cover upon today is our severe thunderstorm and severe weather warnings. So our severe weather warning that we currently have across the state covers the threat of heavy rainfall associated with storms and exacerbated isolated pockets of heavier shower activity throughout the inland parts of our nation today. We are looking particularly for the northern parts of New South Wales throughout the early part of the afternoon. And as I say, we are going to see that threat progressively move further east as we move throughout the later part of today and into tomorrow. So in particular, the main areas to be monitoring, particularly for heavy rainfall as we speak, around the upper western, but they will shift as we go into tomorrow around parts of the northern tablelands, northwest slopes and plains, central west slopes and plains, and most notably also through areas of the southern parts of our ranges and slopes. Looking also as we go into tomorrow, heavy rainfall conditions that we've been seeing throughout the state through the afternoon. So as I already mentioned, we have had some pockets of quite heavy rainfall throughout northern inland, Tibooburra being the main one, as I said, reaching above about 85 to 90 millimetres of rainfall, as well as Barona and Dans getting to 89 millimetres since 9 a.m. We also are, as we go towards tomorrow, looking at our rainfall forecast. So currently at our 3-hour intervals as we go throughout the later part of today, we are seeing a broad chance of around 10 to 20 mils per 3-hour period across the state, as well as in exacerbated areas where we will be likely seeing some isolated heavier falls. As I already mentioned, we saw around 30 to 40 mils fall in an hour with storm activity throughout the early part of today around Tibooburra, and there is high expectation that we'll be seeing more of that activity throughout the remainder of the day. The most exacerbated rainfall that we look towards tomorrow is the main thing to keep ourselves abreast on. As I mentioned, we're seeing this rainfall shift further towards the east, and particularly around the ranges and slopes around the north of our inland areas. That is going to bring potentially up to 100 millimetres around the northern ranges, pushing into areas of the northwest slopes, and that will basically highlight our risk as we move towards tomorrow for increased riverine flooding, flash flooding, and the potential for isolated areas of potential communities that may be isolated by floodwaters. So it really is one to keep an eye out for the next 24 to 36 hours, particularly around those northern parts. And if you keep monitoring of our rainfall forecast on bom.gov.au, Under our Notara section, you will be able to see the most up-to-date rainfall forecast for your region. Another warning we want to touch upon for today is our sheep graziers warning. This is covering the areas of the Northern Tablelands, Illawarra, South Coast, Northern Tablelands, Southern Tablelands, Northwest Slopes and Plains, Central West Slopes and Plains, Southwest Slopes, Riverina and Snowy Mountains forecast districts. This warning is to cover for the threat for potential heavy rainfall over an area, for also associated with strong winds. So we'll be able to touch upon again a bit further about how this will affect areas and where those areas are. But broadly, we are looking at the increasing westerly winds behind a low pressure trough that's moving through inland parts, being basically associated with a threat for loss of lambs throughout the areas of inland New South Wales. And that also can combine with a threat of loss of basically hypothermia in other stock as well. So one to monitor and keep an eye on also throughout this period. As I say, we have flood watches current throughout the inland parts of the state. So looking at our map now, we can see the footprint of the current flood watches throughout the state. Most notably around the Northwest Slopes and Plain, where we are having a flood watch at the moment between moderate to major flooding for some of those riverine areas, as well as we move towards the Central West Slopes and Plains, where minor to moderate flooding is also expected as we see the rainfall fall in those catchments. So really we are looking at some quite fast response catchments around those Northwest Slopes and Plains, especially around the Guida and Inverell region, where we are looking at those potentially very high rainfall rates as we move towards tomorrow. So it really pays, a need to keep an eye on the Bureau's warning page, particularly as we move through the next couple of days, noting when the rainfall falls, as well as noting where we are seeing our flood warnings reaching certain criteria and how that may affect you. Finally, I'll look at it again as an idea of how the system is going to evolve over the next coming days. So we have this low pressure trough currently through the northern inland, which is bringing our storm activity around the areas to the northwest and north of Bawarrina. As we move towards tonight, we are going to see this trough move further east and linger further down into inland parts of the nation through to tomorrow morning. So as we look at this period, we are going to see a general clearing trend to the west of this low pressure system. So by the early part of tomorrow, we will see most of our storm activity to the east of Cobar, and it will start to build through those areas of the Northwest Slopes and Northern Tablelands, as well as areas of the Central West Slopes and Plains. Through the later part of the day, we will see this low push further southeast, and we will be seeing also a general easing in the heaviest rainfall around areas of Cobar towards Moree, but still seeing some quite heavy falls to the north of Tamworth, and in particular around the southern ranges and slopes, where we have very strong onshore winds driving heavy rainfall around those areas. As we lead towards Wednesday, we are going to see broadly clearing conditions as we have westerly winds dragging across the state. And as we see these westerly winds being driven across the region, we will be seeing generally isolated showers, light in nature, and likely to be starting to see some more clear skies in our far west of our state. The last thing to touch upon will be focusing on further down the track. We will be wanting to keep a closer eye on the next weather system, which will be coming through later part of Saturday, which is a cold front, which is going to have a chance to bring some more shower activity, not to the extent that we've been seeing as we speak and into tomorrow, but still some more wet conditions potentially as we move towards the weekend, in particular for areas of the Riverina. I will now pass you back to the presenter.
Thank you, Jordan, for that tailored and comprehensive overview on the weather outlook for the days ahead. And it certainly does look like some challenging conditions, particularly in that northern inland area, as that low pressure system continues to move across the top of the state and bring with it a lot of rain. Look, please do follow newsouthwalesfarmers.com.au, for the latest flood updates, and also our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And obviously our regional services managers, our RSMs, are a great first point of contact in respective regions around the state. So there are the telephone and contact details for our RSM network, who are really there to assist you on the ground through this fairly challenging time for New South Wales farming. Finally, I just want to provide a brief update on some emergency contact information. If you're facing life-threatening conditions or severe injuries, please do call 000 for emergency support. The state emergency services are doing a fabulous job across our state. The SES flood hotline is 132 500 for flood emergency support. And finally, Department of Primary Industries and Local Land Services have activated their emergency flood response and animal welfare hotline. That number is 1800 184 647. That's 1-800-814 647 for emergency animal support from LLS and DPI. I'll wrap it up there, but please do stay safe over the coming days. Please follow the Bureau of Met's warnings and associated emergency information, and I hope the best for coming days. Thank you.